Hey guys, tonight we are wandering into one of the strangest corners of medieval Europe, a place where the living and the dead once kept each other warm. Imagine a valley shrouded in fog, somewhere between the Rhine and the edge of the Alps, where winter refused to end. Snow falls not in flakes but in sheets, heavy enough to bend the thatched roofs and crack the fences. You are standing there now, your breath blooming white in the dark, listening to the quietest sound in the world, the stillness that comes when everything living is too cold to move. You probably would not survive a single night here. The cold is not the kind that stings, it is the kind that seeps. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me where you are listening from, and what time it is in your part of the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake to the sound of nothing. The hearth long ago stopped burning, and even the coals are grey. The air inside your cottage tastes of smoke and damp wood, the kind of smell that clings to the inside of your throat. Every breath feels heavier than the one before. Outside, the snow presses against the door like a living thing. You push it open with your shoulder and step into a morning that looks exactly like night. The sky is the color of stone dust. The roofs are buried. Paths vanish beneath drifts. In the distance, the church tower juts out of the white like a broken tooth. The bell rope hangs frozen in place, a single icicle stretching from the belfry to the ground. No one rings it anymore, because everyone knows what it would mean. Another burial. Your village is small, no more than 20 families now. The plague years thinned it first. The famine finished what disease began. You can still see the outlines of homes that collapsed last winter and were never rebuilt. People do not bother taking the timbers. The wood is too soaked with sorrow. They say ghosts live in the beams, and the last thing anyone needs here is more company. Still, there is something comforting in the sight of the churchyard. It rises on a small hill behind the chapel, the only ground that stays soft beneath the frost. Steam curls from the earth there, faint as candle smoke. At first the villagers thought it a miracle, that the Lord himself had blessed the grave so that the dead would never freeze. Then someone noticed that when they stood among the stones, the air felt a little warmer, only a breath, only a whisper of heat, but enough to stop fingers from going numb. By midwinter, the first desperate families moved their straw mattresses to the edge of the churchyard. They said they could sleep without waking from the cold, that the warmth from below was steady like a hidden fire. No one wanted to admit aloud what everyone suspected, that the heat came from decay, from the slow work of bodies returning to the soil. But when you have not felt your toes in 3 nights, you stop caring where mercy comes from. One by one, more families followed, dragging their beds closer to the fence, until the fence itself disappeared under snow, and people lay side by side with the graves. Children stopped crying. Frostbite stopped spreading. For the first time in months, the village slept through the night. You lie there now, under a patched wool blanket, listening to the muffled sound of breathing, the living and perhaps something else. The ground beneath you feels strangely soft, as if the earth itself is exhaling. Each gust of wind rattles the wooden crosses, and they creak like voices trying to speak. Somewhere nearby, a dog whimpers in its sleep. You pull the blanket tighter, and the warmth creeps up your legs, across your stomach, into your chest. For the first time, you stop shaking. You tell yourself that warmth is warmth, that God would not allow evil to come from comfort. But even as you close your eyes, you notice a faint smell rising through the frozen soil. Not rot exactly, not death, but something sweet and faintly sour like apples left too long in a cellar. It reminds you that you are lying on borrowed heat. Morning comes grey and slow. The sun has forgotten this place. The church door creaks open, and the priest steps out, wrapped in a robe that once was white. His beard is rimmed with ice. He looks at the makeshift beds, at the faces peeking from beneath blankets, and shakes his head. He says nothing. He stopped preaching weeks ago when his congregation started sleeping in the graveyard. What can Scripture offer that warmth cannot? He only mutters a brief blessing and goes back inside. No one blames him. Everyone is too tired to pray. By noon, the snow begins to fall again, small flakes that barely move the air. You help gather sticks from the edge of the forest. The trees groan as if they envy you. When you return, you pass the well, frozen solid, and the old mill, its wheel locked in place like a skeletal hand. Near the steps of the chapel, someone has hung a pot over a fire fed with coffin wood. The irony is lost on no one. People eat silently. The stew is grey and tastes of smoke. No one knows what meat it is, but it is hot, and that is all that matters. Across from you, a woman hums to herself while stirring the pot, a tune you cannot place. You realize she is humming a hymn. Even in hunger, the habit of faith lingers like breath in cold air. That night, you lie closer to the graves than before. Snow has buried the paths, and only the tops of headstones poke out, names half erased by frost. You run your fingers over one, Maria 1348, the year of the plague. Beneath the stone, the ground feels warm enough to melt a little patch of snow. You think of Maria's bones, of the slow fire they must feed. You wonder if this is sin. Then you remember that sin requires choice, and there is no choice left here. Somewhere beyond the wall, wolves howl. They do not come close anymore. Perhaps even they sense that this place belongs to someone else now. Later, as you drift towards sleep, you hear footsteps crunching through the snow. You open your eyes to see a shape moving among the graves, holding a small lantern. The light bobs and glows against the white. It is the priest. He kneels before one of the newer mounds, murmuring words you cannot catch. Then, slowly he reaches out and presses his bare hand against the snow-covered soil, as if testing for warmth. For a long moment he stays like that, head bowed, before rising and walking back toward the church. The lantern flickers once, then goes out. You lie still, unsure whether what you saw was devotion or despair. In the morning, frost flowers bloom on the inside of your window, thin, perfect shapes like feathers or wings. The children play with them, scraping them off to reveal the grey light beyond. You watch from your place among the graves, wrapped in your blanket, and realize that the air smells faintly of thaw. Somewhere underfoot, the earth is stirring. The warmth that kept you alive might soon turn to steam and sink away, leaving only the chill behind. But for now, the village sleeps beside its ancestors, breathing the same air, sharing the same fragile heat, waiting for a sun that has forgotten how to rise. The first thaw of February comes not as sunshine but as dripping. You wake to the sound of water sliding down the thatch, one slow drop at a time, like a clock measuring patience instead of minutes. Snow melts unevenly, leaving mounds shaped like collapsed graves, and the air smells of rot and wet wool. The frost that once locked the world in silence is gone, replaced by the constant whisper of melt the water. You pull your blanket around your shoulders and step outside. The ground under your feet shifts with each step, no longer frozen but not yet alive. It is a strange in-between texture, soft as bread dough and colder than flesh. The graveyard fence creaks as you push it open, and a gust of wind carries the smell of damp earth, stronger now, richer. At first you do not notice the others standing among the graves. They move quietly, as if afraid to wake the soil itself. Someone has brought a small brazier and lit a meager fire, the smoke curling like prayer. Around it, a few villagers warm their hands, speaking in whispers. You join them, your breath mixing with the steam rising from the ground. One of the men, old Gerhardt, the bell ringer, says the thaw is dangerous. He remembers the year 1329, when the graves caved in after a warm spell and bones surfaced like driftwood. He says the earth remembers everything, even what we try to bury. You listen and glance toward the slope behind the chapel where the oldest graves lie. The snow there is already sliding away, exposing dark patches of soil like bruises on pale skin. That afternoon, the priest calls a meeting inside the chapel. The pews are damp, the candles weep wax that never hardens, and the saints in the stained glass seem to look down with pity rather than grace. He stands at the altar, holding his hands together, and tells everyone that the graveyard is holy ground, not a hearth. He asks them to move their beds back to their cottages, to trust that spring will come soon. His voice trembles not from conviction but from exhaustion. You can see the blue veins on his hands when he gestures toward the door. No one answers. The silence that follows is long and heavy, like a frozen river. Finally, the widow Ilse, who lost her husband to frostbite, says quietly, "We will move when warmth returns from the sky, not the ground." Her tone is not defiant, merely tired. The priest nods, as if he expected that answer, and dismisses everyone. By nightfall, the graveyard glows faintly under the moonlight, its snow reflecting a ghostly silver. You lie awake listening to the groaning of wet wood, the occasional soft collapse of a mound, and the slow breathing of those who sleep beside you. The fire in your brazier is nearly out. You feed it a handful of twigs, watch the smoke rise, and wonder how many more nights like this the world can hold. The warmth beneath the earth is changing. It feels restless now, uneven. Some spots are hot enough to steam, others cold as iron. When you place your palm on the soil, you swear you feel a faint vibration, as though the earth is humming quietly to itself. The next morning, the bell rings. Not for mass, no one attends anymore, but because something has happened. You run to the churchyard and see a small crowd gathered near the fence. A section of ground has sunk during the night, forming a hollow lined with broken planks. In the center, something pale protrudes from the soil. At first you think it is stone, then bone, then realize it is both. A coffin has shifted, its lid cracked, revealing the edge of a human arm turned ashen with time. No one speaks. The priest makes the sign of the cross, but even he looks afraid. The grave digger, a boy no older than 16, climbs down to cover it, muttering about bad omens. When his shovel strikes the wood, a hollow sound echoes through the yard, like a drumbeat from under the earth. After that day, the bell never stops ringing. Gerhard, the old bell ringer, begins tolling at dawn and does not stop until dusk. He says the dead need comfort, that they must be lulled back to sleep. At first, the sound seems reassuring, steady as a heartbeat. Then it becomes unbearable, a low, constant reminder that something beneath you refuses to rest. The children cover their ears. The dogs howl. Even the crows avoid the rooftops. Still, Gerhard rings. You ask him why he continues when no one can bear it anymore. He smiles, showing teeth as yellow as candlelight, and says, "If I stop, they might answer." The next few days blur together. The snow melts into rivers that cut through the village streets. The air feels thick, heavy with dampness and memory. Every step sinks ankle-deep into mud, and the smell of the thawing graveyard follows everywhere, sweet, bitter, ancient. You try not to think about what happens when flesh meets water after so long. People whisper of sickness. A few children develop fevers, their foreheads burning, as if to balance the cold outside. The priest prays louder now, his voice hoarse, as though he is trying to outshout the bell. At night, you dream of warmth that burns instead of comforts. You see yourself lying under the soil, hearing the faint tapping of the bell through the earth, and feeling the heat rise from your own chest. You wake with your heart pounding, your blanket damp with sweat. Outside, the sky is a dull orange, the color of dying embers. You rise, drawn to the sound of the bell, and step into the night air. The churchyard looks alive in the half-light, steam rising from every mound, the crosses glistening with condensation. You walk among them, your breath visible, and realize the ground feels warmer than ever, almost feverish. At the far end of the yard near the older graves, you see something move. A small figure crouches by a headstone, hands pressed flat against the soil. It is Ilse, the widow. You call out to her, but she does not turn. When you reach her, you see that her palms are black with dirt. She looks up, her eyes wide, and whispers. They're whispering tonight. They know spring is coming. You try to pull her away, but she resists, staring at the ground as if listening to a lullaby. Only she can hear. Finally, she stands and wipes her hands on her dress, leaving streaks like ink. They're not angry, she says softly. They're just lonely. Then she walks back toward the cottages, leaving you with the sound of the bell and the faint warmth beneath your feet. By dawn, mist has swallowed the village. The bell finally stops. Mid-ring, the silence more shocking than the noise. People emerge from their beds, blinking at the fog. The air feels lighter but not cleaner. When you pass the church, you notice the door is ajar. Inside, Gerhardt lies slumped beside the bell rope, his hands blistered, the skin raw where the rope rubbed. His eyes are open, his lips parted as if he died mid-sentence. The priest kneels beside him, murmuring a prayer too quiet to hear. The bell above them hangs still, heavy with silence. That evening no one sleeps in the graveyard, not from fear, but because the ground has turned too soft, too unstable. Fires burn in every doorway, fed by coffin wood and broken furniture. The sky is pale and cloudless, the stars sharp as frost. You sit by the church fence, watching steam rise from the earth in thin, wavering lines. For the first time in months, the warmth feels wrong. It is no longer the gentle breath of mercy, but something restless, impatient, like a sleeper stirring beneath a blanket. You close your eyes and listen. Somewhere deep below, you think you hear the faintest echo of the bell ringing where no hand can reach. The day after Gerhardt's death, the bell remains silent, but the village does not. People move slower, as though the air itself has thickened. You notice that everyone speaks in murmurs now, voices lowered instinctively, as if afraid to wake something. The ground is bare of snow, except for stubborn patches clinging to shadowed corners. Everything smells of thaw, wet stone, old wood, and something darker underneath, like the scent of forgotten basements. The graveyard has become a bog. The crosses lean at odd angles, some half swallowed by the earth, others snapped where the frost released its grip too suddenly. Steam still curls from the ground in places, ghostly wisps that blur the boundary between air and soil. You pass by the priest's cottage. Through the window, you can see him hunched over a table, writing by candlelight. The paper looks damp, curling at the edges. You knock once, but he doesn't answer. Inside, you find him surrounded by open ledgers, births, deaths, marriages. He's been adding new names in trembling ink, then crossing them out again, muttering dates under his breath. When he notices you, his eyes are hollow, but calm in a strange way. "I'm trying to keep count," he says softly, "but the numbers don't stay the same." You ask what he means, and he gestures toward the ledger. The ink has run in long black veins across the page, smearing the names together. "They keep shifting," he whispers, "as if the dead won't settle." That night, the temperature rises again. Mist rolls down from the hills and settles over the village like breath on glass. It seeps through doors, through shutters, through every crack in the wood. You wake in the small hours with the taste of earth in your mouth and the sound of dripping somewhere close. You light a stub of candle and see water beading along the walls, trickling down like tears. The floor is damp beneath your bare feet. Outside, the graveyard glows faintly, the mist silver under the moon. You step out, drawn as if sleepwalking. The ground yields under your weight, soft, almost warm. Your foot sinks deeper than you expect, and when you pull it free, the mud clings to your skin like something that does not want to let go. By the old fence, you see movement. A group of villagers are gathered there, silhouettes swaying in the mist. Someone has brought torches. The light wavers, revealing faces you half recognize, pale, hollow-eyed, dirt on their cheeks. They are digging. You watch in silence as shovels bite into the earth with slow, rhythmic force. One of them looks up. It is Ilse again. Her hair sticks to her forehead, and her expression is serene, almost joyful. She calls softly to the others, and you hear her say, "They're close now. The warmth will rise if we help them breathe." The others nod as though she's said something holy. You take a step forward, ready to speak, but the words die in your throat. There's a sound, a low, muffled crack, like a sigh beneath the ground. The steam thickens, rising in sudden gusts, and everyone freezes. The torches hiss as droplets fall from above. Ilse smiles. "They're listening," she whispers. You retreat before anyone notices you. Inside your cottage, the candle has burned to its stub. You lie awake until morning, listening for the sound of shovels. It never comes. The next day the air feels heavier. The priest walks through the streets carrying a wooden crucifix, muttering prayers in Latin. He sprinkles water that smells faintly of salt and vinegar, holy water long gone sour. When he passes the graveyard, he stops and stares. The fresh mounds are gone. The soil is flat, smooth, as if nothing had been disturbed. Only the torches remain, half buried in mud, their tips blackened. No one speaks of it. The following evening, a cold wind sweeps down from the hills. The fog lifts for the first time in days, revealing a sky thick with clouds moving too fast, like smoke. The village gathers near the church for warmth. Someone has built a large fire from what remains of the fence, and the smell of burning oak fills the air. You sit close to the flames, rubbing your hands together, when you hear a faint creak behind you. The church door is swinging open and shut, pushed by the wind or something else. The priest stands frozen in the doorway, his face pale as the moon. He says he heard singing inside. You glance toward the bell tower, where a dim orange glow pulses behind the slats. The wind grows stronger, carrying with it a faint melody. It is not words exactly, but something like humming, a slow collective tone, rising and falling in time with the wind. It sounds almost human. You and the others climb the stairs to the belfry. The air is thick with dust and the smell of metal. The rope still hangs where Gerhard left it, frayed and dark with dried blood. The bell itself looms above, its bronze surface slick with condensation. When you touch it, the metal feels warm. The priest lifts his candle and peers upward. The glow inside the bell intensifies, then fades, leaving only the reflection of the flame. The humming stops. Somewhere far below, a door slams and the candle flickers out. For a moment, you are suspended in complete darkness, surrounded by silence so deep it hums in your bones. Then, from beneath the floorboards comes a faint tapping, slow, deliberate, impossible to mistake for the wind. One tap, then another, and another, like fingers drumming on a coffin lid. The priest gasps, crossing himself. "They're beneath us," he whispers. No one sleeps that night. The fire burns low and people huddle together, afraid to close their eyes. By morning, the tapping stops, replaced by a hollow stillness. The mist returns, thicker than before. It hides the sun entirely. You walk through it as if underwater, the world reduced to grey shapes and echoes. The church stands barely visible, its outline wavering. You hear whispers, real voices this time, coming from the direction of the graveyard. You follow them and find Ilse kneeling before one of the older stones, her hands folded, her lips moving. When you ask what she's doing, she smiles faintly. "They're asking for names," she says. "They don't want to be forgotten." Her voice trembles, not with fear but with something close to reverence. You look at her hands and notice the skin around her nails is blackened, as if burned by frost or something worse. That night, the priest nails the church door shut. He says no one should go inside until Easter. People whisper that he's afraid of what he heard in the belfry, but he insists it's to keep faith pure. Meanwhile, the village keeps warm in the only way it knows. Families move their beds closer to the graves again. The warmth has returned, stronger than ever. Steam rises even when the air is cold enough to crack iron. You try to stay in your cottage, but the chill drives you out. You sit by the fence, hands stretched toward the faint heat radiating from the soil. The snow around the graves never returns. Even in the dead of night, the ground smolders gently, as if the earth itself were alive. You wake before dawn to a strange brightness. The mist is glowing from within, lit by something you cannot see. You step outside and find the entire churchyard shrouded in pale light, the kind that comes not from the sky but from the ground. The stones gleam, their inscriptions shining through centuries of moss. The warmth you feel is no longer subtle. It presses against your skin like breath. For a moment you could almost believe the earth is trying to speak. Then, faintly, you hear it again, that same low humming, distant yet everywhere. It vibrates through your feet, up your spine until even your teeth ache with it. You close your eyes, unsure whether to listen or run, but you don't move, because beneath the fear there's comfort, something familiar, almost kind. It feels like a lullaby for the living. When the morning finally comes, the mist has vanished, and the light with it. The graveyard looks ordinary again, just mud and stone and frost-bitten grass, but the warmth lingers, faint and steady. You realize that you no longer shiver. The villagers begin to stir, quiet but calm. The priest opens his shutters, squints at the sky, and for the first time in months you see sunlight, weak, pale but real. Somewhere a bird sings. You cannot remember the last time you heard that sound. It feels like waking from a dream you aren't sure you wanted to end. When the first sunlight touches the village, it looks almost unreal. The roofs glisten with meltwater. The air hums faintly with the promise of warmth, and yet the ground still breathes steam. People step outside like prisoners testing their freedom, shielding their eyes against the dull glow. For a brief, miraculous moment, there's laughter, thin and cautious, but laughter all the same. Someone remarks that they had forgotten what color looks like. The snow that remains sparkles, the icicles drip in steady rhythm, and the bird song continues, scattered and uncertain, as if even the sparrows are remembering how to live. You walk the path to the graveyard. The earth there has settled smooth and soft underfoot. A few headstones lean together like tired travelers. The air feels warmer than it should, almost gentle. You crouch to touch the soil. It is dry now, almost powdery, the smell sharp with minerals. The warmth has faded, but not vanished. It lingers like the breath of someone who has just stopped speaking. You look around and realize the mist is gone completely for the first time in months. The sky is pale blue, cloudless, vast. The silence feels different now, less of an absence, more of a pause. You sense the village holding its breath. The priest emerges from the church, squinting against the light. His robe looks cleaner somehow, though you doubt he has washed it. He walks slowly among the graves, murmuring to himself. When he reaches you, he nods once, like a man greeting an equal. "It's over," he says. You ask him what he means, and he replies, "The cold, the fever, the dreams, they've passed." But when he looks around, his eyes linger on the ground for a fraction too long, as if expecting it to move. For a few weeks, life begins again. The river breaks its ice and starts flowing, weak but steady. Fields emerge from beneath the snow. The villagers dig trenches, plant whatever seeds they've saved, and patch the holes in their roofs. There's laughter again, small and weary but real. You help rebuild fences and carry stones from the thawed road. The children chase chickens through puddles. The smell of damp hay replaces the rot that once ruled the air. Even the church bell rings once more, softly, a single note at sunrise. The priest calls it Thanksgiving. And yet, the warmth never fully leaves the graveyard. Some nights, when the wind dies, a faint vapor still rises from the soil. The villagers avoid speaking of it. They have learned not to question small miracles, but sometimes, when you pass the churchyard at dusk, you notice flickers of light between the stones, like fireflies, or candle flames trapped beneath glass. You try not to look too long. One evening you find Ilsa sitting by her husband's grave again. Her hair is silver now, though only a few months have passed. She's tracing shapes in the soil, her fingertips black with dirt. You ask if she's all right, and she smiles faintly. They're quieter now, she says, but they remember us. They always will. Her voice carries a strange peace. She stands, brushing her skirt, and hands you a small object, a lump of smooth, dark stone shaped like a heart. It was under the soil, she explains. Still warm, you turn it over in your palm. It hums faintly, a vibration more felt than heard. When you look up, she's already walking away, her figure dissolving into twilight. Days stretch into weeks, and with them comes the restlessness of spring. Travelers return to the road. Merchants bring news of villages that didn't survive the winter, names already fading from memory. Somehow, yours endured. You think about that as you walk through the thawing meadows, the smell of wet grass filling your lungs. Survival, you realize, has a strange flavor. It is not triumph, but guilt diluted over time. You carry it like a shadow. One night, a storm rolls in from the west. It begins with thunder so distant it sounds like drums. Rain follows, soft at first, then relentless. The fields flood, the river swells, and the air thickens with the smell of iron. You huddle inside, listening to the wind batter the shutters. When it finally passes, the village wakes to find the churchyard half flooded. The graves nearest the riverbank have collapsed, the soil washed away, wooden markers float like dead birds. The priest and a few villagers wade through the mud to retrieve them. You follow, slipping on the slick ground. When you reach the edge of the water, you see it, a hand, pale as milk, emerging from the soil, fingers curled toward the sky. Someone gasps, but no one screams. You all stand there, frozen. As the priest kneels beside it, he touches the wrist gently, muttering a prayer. Then he presses the hand back into the mud, covering it with his own until it disappears. Let them rest, he says. The words sound more like a plea than a command. After that storm, things begin to shift again. Animals refuse to cross the churchyard. Horses balk, dogs whine, cats vanish for days. The priest's candle won't stay lit during Mass. Each time he tries to read from Scripture, the flame gutters out as if someone has blown on it. He grows thinner, his voice weaker. You hear him pacing the church late into the night, whispering verses that echo down the nave. Then, one dawn, the bell rings again, only once, a single note that vibrates through the air like the aftershock of memory. You rush to the churchyard and find the bell swinging gently, though no rope moves. The priest is gone. His cottage door stands open, the candle inside still burning. On the table lies his ledger. The ink has dried to a dull brown. Across the last page, a single line is written. They are not gone, they are waiting. You keep the page folded in your coat pocket for days. Unsure why, you tell no one. Life, as it always does, continues. The crops sprout, the children play, the air grows warmer, but the nights remain strange. Some evenings the mist returns, thin and golden now, glowing faintly around the churchyard like the memory of fire. You walk past it sometimes, unable to resist. The warmth still seeps through your boots, and the smell is the same, sweet, faintly sour, almost human. One night, near midsummer, you hear singing again. Not the wind this time, but voices, low, harmonious, familiar. They rise and fall like waves, echoing across the fields. You follow the sound to the churchyard. The villagers are there, standing among the graves, eyes closed, hands clasped. Ilsa leads them, her voice soft but strong. You recognize the melody, the same hymn she hummed months ago beside the coffin fire. You hesitate at the gate. The song grows louder, and for a moment, the ground beneath your feet vibrates in rhythm, a faint, pulsing beat. You realize what they are singing is not for the dead, but with them. You turn to leave, but something stops you. The air is thick with heat, and the mist glows brighter. The stones shimmer, their inscriptions flickering like breath on glass. You take a step closer and feel warmth flood your body, comforting, irresistible. Your heart slows, your thoughts blur. It is not fear that fills you, but an overwhelming calm like slipping into water that's exactly your temperature. The song carries you until you forget which voices belong to the living. When you wake, dawn is breaking. The churchyard is empty. The ground is dry. No footprints remain. The only sound is the steady drip of dew from the trees. You stand there for a long time, listening, waiting for the song to return. It doesn't. Only the faint hum remains, the heartbeat of the earth itself, steady and slow, as if it too remembers the night before. The summer that follows feels like a miracle no one dares to name. Wheat rises in thick green waves. The river glitters instead of groaning. The air is alive with the buzzing of bees and the laughter of children who seem to have forgotten entirely that winter ever existed. Yet even in the full heat of noon, a strange coolness lingers near the churchyard, a whisper of the cold season that will come again. You notice the villagers walk around it now, tracing new paths to the well and the fields, as though unconsciously avoiding that ground. Only Ilse still visits, her hair catching the sun like fine thread, her voice humming soft hymns as she tends the graves. The priest never returns. His cottage remains untouched. Dust gathers on his books, cobwebs spin across the window corners, and the crucifix above his door tilts slightly to one side, as if tired. You pass by sometimes and think you see movement inside, a flicker of light or the sway of a curtain, but when you look again, the stillness returns. Some say he went north to seek forgiveness in a monastery. Others whisper that he simply walked into the mist one night and was welcomed beneath the earth like everyone else. No one knows and no one digs for the answer. Life in the village settles into a kind of fragile peace. Markets return. Travelers stop to rest. For the first time in years, there's talk of rebuilding the mill. You spend your days helping to cut timber, feeling the familiar rhythm of the axe steady your mind. The scent of sap and pine covers the memory of rot. Yet at night, when the moon hangs low and the mist creeps back along the river, you can't shake the feeling that the air itself is listening. Sometimes you wake from dreams so vivid they leave you trembling, faces pressed to the ground, mouths open in song, eyes closed in devotion. In the dreams you are never sure whether you are among the living or the buried. One night, you wander down to the churchyard again, drawn by habit more than courage. The moon is full, painting everything in cold silver. The stones gleam, and the grass sways even though the air is still. You walk between the graves, whispering apologies you can't quite explain. When you reach the older section where the names have been erased by time, you see something you've never noticed before. A small door set into the base of the church wall, half buried beneath vines and soil. It's barely the height of your knee, carved from dark wood with a rusted iron latch. You crouch down, wipe away the dirt, and find that it moves easily under your hand. The door opens with a sigh. A faint breath of air escapes, warm, damp, and carrying the unmistakable scent of the crypt below. You peer inside. Stone steps spiral downward into darkness, slick with moisture. The sound that rises from below is not wind but the faint murmur of running water. Against all logic, you find yourself descending, candle in hand, heart pounding. The air grows thicker as you go, heavy with the scent of wax, dust, and something sweet. When your feet touch the floor, you find yourself in a low chamber lined with shelves. Bones rest in neat stacks, skulls arranged like rows of silent witnesses. And yet it's not the bones that hold your gaze, it's the light. At the center of the crypt stands a small metal brazier, its coals faintly glowing, though no one has tended them in months. The heat is soft but constant. Above it, suspended from the ceiling, hangs a silver censer, swaying gently though there is no wind. From it drifts a thread of smoke, curling upward in slow spirals that fade into the stone. You kneel beside the brazier, the warmth seeping into your skin, and realize it's the same temperature as the soil above, steady, human, impossible. A chill crawls up your spine. You whisper the priest's name, and for a moment you think you hear a reply. Not a voice exactly, but a sigh, as though someone exhales from behind the walls. You hurry back to the surface, closing the door behind you. The air outside feels colder now, even though summer still clings to the fields. When you return to your cottage, dawn is breaking. You light a fire and sit before it, watching the flames dance, and you tell yourself that what you saw was nothing more than trapped heat, a quirk of the earth. But deep down, you know better. The warmth that once saved the village never left. It simply moved deeper. Days pass. The harvest nears. The villagers sing as they gather wheat, the sound bright and careless. You try to join in, but every note feels wrong in your throat. The nights grow shorter, yet darker somehow, the stars dimming behind an unseen haze. You start to notice small things. Candles that refuse to stay lit near the church, the faint smell of smoke when no fires are burning, the low vibration under your feet. When you walk past the graveyard gate, the animals sense it too. Horses snort and pull away. Cows refuse to graze near the fence, and dogs dig frantically at the ground before retreating in silence. Then one evening, as the sun sets red over the hills, a sudden wind sweeps through the valley, bending the wheat and snapping branches. The air fills with dust and the taste of copper. You hear a sound from the direction of the church, a low, rolling groan like thunder trapped underground. People run to their doors, peering out, whispering prayers. The bell begins to swing again, slow and deliberate, its deep tone rippling through the night. You know no one is ringing it. You can feel it in your chest, each toll shaking something loose inside you. The villagers gather near the church, torches held high, faces pale. The door swings open with a bang, and the heat that pours out is unbearable. It smells like iron, smoke, and myrrh. You catch sight of Ilsa, standing at the threshold. Her eyes reflect the firelight, bright and calm. "They've woken," she says simply. "It's their turn now." She steps inside, and before anyone can stop her, the door slams shut. The bell stops ringing. The silence that follows is complete, like the world holding its breath. When dawn comes, the church is empty. No sign of Ilsa, no footprints in the mud. The villagers find the brazier in the crypt cold, and the scents are still. Only the faint smell of incense remains. They rebuild the door, seal it with stone, and decide never to speak of it again. But every year when summer ends, the mist returns, curling low over the fields, creeping down from the hills. On those nights you wake to the faint sound of the bell, distant and steady, and the warmth seeping through the floorboards of your home. The children born after that winter don't understand why their parents glance toward the church whenever the air grows heavy. They laugh when you tell them the ground remembers. They play among the graves, weaving flowers into the cracks of the stones. And yet, when they fall asleep, they dream of singing, the same soft wordless hymn that once filled the valley. You see them stir in their beds, hands moving as if to clasp invisible fingers. You watch, unable to wake them, and realize that perhaps the village has never truly left the graveyard. Perhaps it was the other way around. When autumn arrives, the air sharpens. The fields grow quiet again, and the first frost creeps along the fences. You stand at the edge of the churchyard one last time, feeling the warmth fade beneath your feet. Somewhere beneath you, the hum continues, steady and patient. It is not a threat, not even a promise. It is simply there, ancient, inevitable, alive. Winter returns like a rumor before it becomes a season. The first frost comes earlier than anyone expects, a pale glitter along the rooftops one morning that makes even the children fall quiet. You step outside, and the cold bites, clean and sharp, nothing like the endless grey damp of last year. It feels alive, as if the air itself is breathing against your skin. The sky is clear, the kind of blue that feels thin enough to shatter. Somewhere deep in your chest, the cold stirs an old memory, the hiss of frost in your hair, the creak of the wooden crosses under the weight of snow, the slow warmth rising from the earth like a sigh. The villagers try to pretend it is only weather. They patch windows, salt meat, hang herbs from the rafters as protection against sickness. They tell each other this winter will be different. There are enough provisions this time, enough wood, enough faith. You help gather branches from the forest edge, where the trees have begun to groan under the weight of ice. The forest smells of resin and iron and something older, a metallic scent that reminds you of blood. When you pass the churchyard, you notice frost patterns blooming across the stones. Each pattern is different, but all spiral inward, as though drawn by a hidden hand. The air there feels warmer, faintly pulsing, as if the soil itself were dreaming beneath its white blanket. By midwinter, the warmth returns in full. You feel it first through the soles of your boots. Soft, insistent, familiar. The villagers notice it too. At night, they leave their doors open to the mist, claiming it keeps their fires from dying. The old superstition becomes habit, and the graveyard begins to glow again. Only faintly at first, thin ribbons of steam curling through the snow. But by the end of the week, the whole yard breathes like a sleeping beast. You lie awake watching it from your window, your breath fogging the glass, unable to tell whether you are seeing heat or memory. One night the warmth grows stronger, and you wake drenched in sweat. The fire has gone out, yet the air in your cottage is stifling. You open the door for relief, and a gust of mist rushes past you, smelling of wet stone and wax. The village is glowing faintly, the light not from torches but from the ground itself. A soft radiance seeps through the cracks between cobbles, through the spaces around door frames. It is as though the entire valley is lit from beneath. You step outside barefoot, drawn toward the church. The snow under your feet melts with each step, and the heat intensifies. When you reach the churchyard fence, you realize you're not alone. Figures stand among the graves, villagers, dozens of them, dressed in night clothes, their faces blank, their eyes reflecting the pale light. They move slowly, their breaths visible, hands reaching out to touch the stones. Ilse is there too, though you had not seen her since that night in summer. She stands before the sealed crypt door, her hair loose, her lips moving in silent prayer. The mist gathers around her ankles, swirling in delicate patterns. She turns, meets your gaze, and smiles faintly. "They never left," she says. Her voice is soft, almost apologetic. "We just stopped listening." You try to speak, but your throat feels tight. She turns back to the door and kneels, pressing her palms flat against the cold stone. The glow brightens. You hear it again, the low humming that began as rumor months ago. It vibrates through the ground, through your legs, into your chest, a sound that feels less like hearing and more like remembering. The villagers begin to hum with it, their voices joining into one endless note. It is not mournful, not joyful, simply vast. You realize this is not a song for the dead or the living. It is something older, a language without words. The ground trembles gently. Snow slides from the roofs of nearby houses in heavy sheets. A crack runs along the base of the church wall, splitting the mortar. Warm air rushes out, carrying the scent of incense and decay. The sealed door buckles inward. You hear a sigh escape from the darkness beyond, long and deep, as though the valley itself were exhaling. The villagers fall silent. For a heartbeat, nothing moves. Then the light fades, the warmth vanishes, and the world returns to silence. The only sound is the soft creak of wood cooling in the cold. When morning comes, the villagers remember nothing. They wake in their beds as if they had never left them, though their feet are muddy and their sheets smell faintly of earth. You walk through the streets watching them go about their chores, voices bright, faces calm. No one speaks of the glow or the humming or the warmth. Even Ilse greets you cheerfully in the square, her eyes clear and blue, her skin pink from the cold. When you mention the graveyard, she tilts her head in confusion. "Why would I go there in winter?" she asks. But you know what you saw. The crack in the church wall remains, a jagged wound running down the stone, dark with moisture. Sometimes steam escapes from it, curling into the air like smoke from a hidden fire. You patch it with mud and lime, but the heat seeps through no matter what you use. The church smells faintly of iron now, and during services the candles flicker toward the floor instead of upward. The children laugh when they see it. You do not. As the weeks pass, the cold grows sharper, crueler, fires die faster, and wood splits with a sound like screaming. Yet the graveyard never freezes. Snow refuses to settle there. Birds roost on the fence even in the darkest nights, their feathers unruffled by the chill. The villagers start sleeping closer together again, their laughter thinning into silence. Once more you see shapes moving in the mist after midnight. Slow, deliberate, always walking toward the churchyard. When you call out, they vanish, but their footprints remain, melted clean through the snow. You begin to keep watch by your window each night, candle burning low, waiting for the glow to return. Some part of you wants to see it again, to feel that impossible warmth, that illusion of safety. You tell yourself you're guarding the village, but deep down you know it's more than that. You miss it. The shared silence, the unity of fear. It had a rhythm, almost like prayer. The night you finally see the light again, it's weaker, more diffuse, like a memory fading. The warmth that follows is gentle, like a sigh. You step outside and find the churchyard quiet, the mist low and thin. The stones gleam faintly under a pale moon. For a moment you believe it's truly over, that the earth has finally gone still. Then, from somewhere deep underground comes a single sound, one faint chime, as if struck from inside the bell itself. The air ripples, your breath catches, and then nothing, just the long hush of winter settling over everything, soft and absolute. When you return to your cottage, your candle has gone out. The room is cold, but your hands are warm. You stare at them for a long time, wondering whether the heat is memory or inheritance. You lie down, pulling the blanket over you, and for the first time in weeks you sleep without dreaming. But if anyone were standing outside your door that night, they would see a faint wisp of steam rising from the threshold, curling lazily upward before vanishing into the dark. By the time the frost loosens its grip, the village has already begun to change again, quietly, invisibly, like rot beneath paint. The thaw comes in sighs and trickles, melting the snow along the edges of roofs first, then down the narrow lanes where footprints overlap from months of trudging. The river stirs, coughing up bits of ice that clink softly against the banks. Children chase the meltwater as it runs through the ruts, their laughter echoing thinly in the brittle air. On the surface, life feels reborn. Beneath it, something else is waking. You notice it first in the smell, not the thick, sweet odor of decay that haunted the last thaw, but something lighter, almost pleasant, like herbs steeped too long in warm water. The scent drifts through the village on days when the wind comes from the churchyard. People remark that spring smells different this year. They smile as they say it, but their eyes flick toward the hill with a flicker of unease. The graves have sunk deeper now, as though the earth has taken a slow breath inward. Moss grows in strange patterns on the stones, curling around names and dates like vines spelling words in an alphabet no one can read. You tell yourself that everything you see is just the season shifting, the cycle of soil and sun. But when you walk near the fence at dusk, your breath fogs differently there. It does not drift upward and away but lingers, curling downward, as if drawn toward the ground. The warmth that once rose from below still hums faintly, low and constant, like a heartbeat you can feel through your boots. You catch yourself matching its rhythm without meaning to. Sometimes when you pause beside a grave, you swear you hear a faint sigh escape from the soil, like the sound of someone turning over in their sleep. Then come the voices. At first, you think they're dreams, the residue of half-remembered nights. They arrive in fragments, a whisper under the window, a hum behind the walls, the faintest murmur that vanishes when you sit up in bed. You tell no one. Everyone here has seen too much, lost too much. They would only nod politely, the way people do when they're too afraid to agree out loud. But you are not the only one. A shepherd boy mentions hearing his name called from the fields at twilight. A woman claims she woke to find her late husband sitting at the foot of her bed, smiling faintly before fading like smoke. None of them sound frightened when they speak, only resigned, as if this were something owed. One morning, you wake to find footprints in the mud outside your cottage, bare, small, and fresh. They lead from your door to the churchyard gate and end there, swallowed by the thawing ground. You follow them with a strange calm, as if this too were part of the routine. Inside the gate, the air feels different, warmer, yes, but thinner, as if the world here has less weight. The mist has returned in patches, glowing faintly in the light. You pass the old door to the crypt and stop. The crack in the stone is wider now, the mortar flaked away. From within comes a sound like soft breathing, slow and regular, the rhythm of a sleeper deep in dreams. You place your hand against the stone, and the heat that seeps through it makes your pulse stutter. It feels alive. That night, the mist spreads from the churchyard down through the streets. It glows faintly blue under the moon. The villagers wake one by one and step outside, drawn by something none of them can name. They gather in silence, their faces pale in the light. No one speaks, but everyone listens. The hum is back, stronger than before, vibrating in the chest and the spine. You can feel it in your teeth. It rises and falls like the tide. Then, softly, from somewhere deep beneath the earth, another sound joins it. A chorus of voices, faint, overlapping, ancient. They don't form words, but you understand them all the same. The meaning is simple. Stay. You should run. You should feel fear, or at least confusion. But instead, a strange calm settles over you. The warmth returns, wrapping around your body like a thick blanket. For the first time in years, you don't feel the ache in your bones or the weight in your lungs. The air tastes of salt and smoke and something sweet. You realize you're crying, though you don't remember starting. The others are crying too, faces glistening in the glow. For a moment, the entire village stands together in perfect stillness, breathing as one. When dawn breaks, the mist is gone, and so are the voices. The fields sparkle under frost, the sky clear as glass, but not everyone wakes. Half the cottages stay silent that morning. Doors hang open, beds are empty, fires burn down to nothing. Those who remain search in silence. No footprints lead away. The ground around the churchyard looks untouched, smooth as silk. Only the heat lingers, rising in lazy curls through the snow. You look for Ilse, but her cottage is cold, the door unlatched. On her table sits a cup of water, half full, still warm to the touch. The priest's ledger is gone. The church stands empty, its doors wide, candles melted down to stubs. You step inside and find the walls blackened with soot, as though a fire burned there long ago. At the altar lies a single object, the heart-shaped stone Ilse once gave you. It is still warm, humming faintly in your hand. You turn it over, and for the first time notice tiny carvings on its surface, lines that look like letters, but not in any language you know. You hold it close to your ear, and you swear you hear a whisper, soft and distant, "Come back." You leave it where it lies. That evening, the sky burns red before darkening to a deep violet. The air feels heavy with moisture, but it doesn't rain. You walk through the village past empty windows and silent doors until you reach the churchyard gate. The mist is waiting for you there, curling around your ankles like an animal greeting its master. You hesitate, then step through. The warmth rushes up to meet you, and for a moment the world feels familiar again. The soft hum, the smell of earth and wax, the faint sound of breathing all around. You lie down among the graves, closing your eyes. The ground is warm beneath your back. You hear voices again, distant but kind. You remember the winters, the hunger, the silence, and realize that this strange, impossible warmth has always been the only mercy you've known. And as the wind moves gently through the grass above you, you understand at last the village didn't live beside the dead. It became them, slowly, lovingly, without noticing, when one world ended and another began. The warmth was never borrowed, it was shared. Spring returns again, though calling it spring feels almost like mockery. The air is bright and wet, the river swollen, the fields alive with new green. But something has gone wrong in the rhythm of it all. The thaw comes too quickly, buds open and rot in the same week. The bees don't hum the way they should. They move in slow circles, confused by the changing light. When the children who remain try to play, their laughter echoes strangely, swallowed before it can fade into distance. The whole valley seems to listen. Even the birds hesitate before landing, wings twitching mid-air, as if deciding whether this place still belongs to the living. You rise early each morning to walk the edge of the fields. You count the cottages now, 12 left where once there were 30. Some roofs have caved in, others stand empty but clean, as though their owners might return any moment. You tell yourself they simply left for better soil, a richer valley, a safer road, but you know the truth. You've stopped trying to dress it in prettier words. The warmth is still here, deep and steady beneath your boots. The air smells faintly of iron again. In the churchyard, the grass grows too quickly. It stands a full hand taller than anywhere else, lush and soft even where the shadows fall. Flowers bloom there out of season, pale yellow and violet buds that glow faintly at dusk. You touch one, and it crumbles instantly into dust. The soil hums beneath your fingers. It feels alive, not just with insects and roots, but with something aware. You look at the church, its windows black, the cross above the door crooked and rusted, and wonder whether anyone should have built on this ground at all. One night, unable to sleep, you light a candle and sit by the window. The mist is back, moving through the streets in ribbons. It no longer glows, it glimmers instead, like breath lit by moonlight. You see shapes moving in it, slow, unhurried, almost graceful. They move like villagers heading home after market, hands clasped behind their backs, shoulders slightly bent from years of carrying wood and grain. You recognize their faces, though they are too faint to cast shadows. Ilse walks among them, her head bowed. She passes your cottage, pausing for the briefest moment. Her lips move, forming a word you cannot hear. Then she continues toward the church. You follow. The candle in your hand flickers as you step outside, the flame shrinking but refusing to die. The mist curls around you, cool and wet. It doesn't cling. It guides. It leads you to the churchyard where the door to the crypt stands open once again. You stop at the threshold, the warmth washing over you like a tide. Inside, the glow is stronger now, orange and gold pulsing like a heartbeat. You hear that same low hum, the chorus rising from beneath the earth. This time, it feels different, not distant, not calling, welcoming. You descend the steps. The air thickens with each breath. The walls glisten, wet and veined with something that looks like roots or veins. The hum grows louder, filling your skull until you can feel your thoughts vibrating apart. The chamber below is larger than before, impossibly so. The shelves of bones remain, but they shine faintly now, their edges smooth and polished like river stones. In the center of the room stands the brazier, still burning. Around it the villagers stand in perfect stillness, eyes closed, their faces calm. Ilse is among them, her hands clasped before her chest, lips moving in silent prayer. None of them seem to notice you. You step closer, your candle sputtering. The brazier's fire flickers and shifts, revealing shapes inside, ash, coals, fragments of something that once was metal. And beneath it, The floor moves, rising and falling like the surface of water. You kneel, placing your hand on the stone, and feel warmth pulsing through it in time with your own heartbeat. The hum synchronizes with your breath, filling your lungs, your blood, your mind. For a dizzy moment, you can feel everything. The roots threading through the earth, the slow decay of wood, the moisture in the air condensing on cold stone. It's too much, and yet you can't look away. A voice breaks through the hum, not loud, but sharp, like the sound of ice cracking on a pond. It says your name, not the one you use now, but the one you had before, the one no one has spoken in years. You look around, but no one moves. The voice comes again, softer this time. "Stay," it says. "You kept us warm." The warmth under your palm increases, almost to pain. You draw back, gasping, but the voice only sighs like wind passing through reeds. The brazier flares, filling the chamber with light, and for a moment you see them, the outlines of countless figures, layered and translucent, standing shoulder to shoulder in silence. The villagers, the dead, the forgotten, all occupying the same breadth of space. Their faces are serene, their eyes closed, as if they are dreaming the same dream. When you wake, you're outside. The sun is rising, pale and pink. The church door is closed again. Your candle lies beside you, its wax hardened in strange looping shapes. The mist is gone, replaced by a faint shimmer along the ground, like heat rising from stone. You stand slowly, every joint aching. Your clothes smell of smoke and something sweet. On your palm, the skin is blistered where you touched the stone. The shape of the burn looks almost like a pattern, a spiral curling inward to a single point. In the days that follow, no one speaks of the night. Those who remain move quietly through their routines. They tend to the fields, repair the fences, and sweep the church steps, though the priest has long vanished. Life continues, but thinner now, stretched at the edges. When the wind blows, it carries faint whispers that sound like names, spoken softly, reverently, one after another. The villagers bow their heads when they hear them. You do too. As weeks pass, something remarkable happens. The crops grow faster than ever before. Wheat ripens early, fruit trees bloom twice in a season, and the animals grow fat without reason. The air feels heavy with fertility, the scent of soil rich and intoxicating. Travelers passing through remark on the valley's beauty, on how everything seems touched by warmth, even in the chill of morning. You watch them leave quickly after dusk, uneasy though they can't say why. You don't blame them. You can feel it too, that quiet, patient hum under every step, the heartbeat of something vast and unseen. Sometimes, late at night, you find yourself back at the churchyard fence, staring into the dark. The warmth never left. It breathes beneath the ground, steady and sure. You know it now for what it is. Not haunting, not curse, but communion. The dead were never resting here. They were waiting, and somewhere deep inside you, the same warmth answers back. By the time autumn bleeds back into the valley, the world feels both alive and wrong. The leaves do not fall in silence, but with the sound of faint whispers, as though the trees themselves are gossiping about the living. The nights are warmer than they should be. The mornings colder, the air filled with scents that don't belong together, burning wood and honey, wet soil, and something faintly metallic. You wake each day, not quite sure what season it is anymore. The weather has stopped obeying the calendar, and so have you. The villagers speak less now. Their words have become slower, quieter, as if the air itself demands reverence. There is no fear anymore, only a peculiar sense of devotion. The fields overflow, the harvest is obscene in its generosity. Pumpkins so large, they have to be rolled by 2 men. Wheat so thick it breaks scythes, but the people grow pale, thinner, even as they eat. Sleep claims them earlier each night, and yet they rise before dawn, faces calm, eyes unfocused. The warmth never fades now. It radiates through the ground like the steady heartbeat of an unseen animal. Sometimes the fog curls up from between the cobblestones in the square, delicate as silk threads, smelling faintly of candle wax and myrrh. You have stopped keeping track of days. The seasons flow together like melted glass. The church doors, once sealed, are open again. Inside, the air glows faintly, as if lit by embers that never cool. The walls seem softer, almost breathing. On some nights, you hear faint singing from within, low voices, melodic but wordless, the sound of prayer stripped of language. You tell yourself it's the wind in the beams, but when you stand too close, you can feel the vibrations through the soles of your feet. One evening, you find a stranger at the edge of the village, a merchant, judging by his cart and the smell of distant roads clinging to his clothes. He looks uneasy, his eyes darting to the churchyard. "You've got steam rising from your fields," he says, half joking, "and the air, it feels too warm for autumn." You tell him it's an old curse of the land, something about underground springs. He nods, though he doesn't believe you. That night he sleeps in his cart, the horse restless, hooves scraping the dirt. In the morning, both are gone. The road out of the valley is empty, except for a single wheel rut filled with water that smells faintly of iron. The next week, children begin leaving small offerings at the graves, flowers, trinkets, carved bits of wood. No one tells them to, but somehow they all start doing it at once. The offerings never last. Each morning the stones are bare again, the ground clean, as if the earth itself had accepted the gifts. The villagers take it as a sign of blessing. You try to believe that too, but at night you see movement in the mist, slow figures bending over the graves, hands outstretched, taking what was offered. The strange thing is that the mist never swallows them entirely. Their faces remain visible, calm, familiar. You think you see your own reflection once, standing among them. When the frost comes early again, no one is surprised. The sky turns white with cold, and yet the river still steams. People stop lighting fires altogether. The heat from the ground is enough. The graveyard glows faintly through the nights. Soft as candlelight, you begin to dream in full color again, something you hadn't done since childhood, but the colors are wrong. Gold that hums, blue that tastes like copper, red that feels warm against your skin. In those dreams, you see the village from above, roofs and fields and roads forming a vast spiral curling inwards toward the church. At the center burns a small flame that never dies. Each time you wake, you remember less of who you were before. One night you hear a sound that shakes the walls. A deep rumble, not thunder, not wind. You rush outside and see the church door hanging wide open. Inside, the glow pulses brighter than ever. Figures move within, dozens of them, their faces half hidden in the light. You recognize everyone, every villager, every missing soul, even the priest, his robes scorched and grey. Ilsa stands at the front, hands raised, her eyes closed. The air is shimmering, dense with heat. You step through the doorway, and for the first time in years, you feel no boundary between breath and earth, between heartbeat and echo. Ilsa opens her eyes. They are not human anymore. They're not monstrous either, simply deeper, as though her pupils open into another world. She smiles when she sees you. "You stayed," she says. Her voice is soft, layered with something else beneath it. A second voice, lower, slower, like the resonance of the bell itself. "We all did." Around her, the villagers begin to sway, their bodies moving in rhythm with that ancient hum. The walls of the church glow brighter, until the wooden beams above start to smoke. You take a step back, but your feet won't move. The warmth pins you in place, gentle yet absolute. The hum becomes a song. You hear words this time. Though you don't understand them, they sound older than the village, older than language itself. The brazier in the center burns high, flames stretching toward the ceiling. And then, all at once, the sound stops. The light collapses inward, vanishing into the brazier like breath drawn back into a chest. The room plunges into silence. For a heartbeat there is nothing, no sound, no light, no time. Then a faint voice whispers, rest, and everything falls away. You wake at dawn in your bed, your clothes smelling of smoke and incense. The air in your cottage is warm, though no fire burns. Outside, the village is empty. The fields are bare, the church stands alone, its cross glowing faintly with frost. You walk through the streets, calling out, but no one answers. The footprints in the snow end at the church gate, each one filled with water that steams faintly in the cold. Inside, the brazier burns quietly again, its flames small, steady, eternal. You sit before it for hours, listening. The hum is still there, faint but constant. You close your eyes, and the warmth spreads through your hands, your chest, your heart. You think of all the winters before, the hunger, the silence, the graves that once kept you alive, and realize this is not fear or punishment. It is inheritance. The village hasn't vanished. It has simply gone inward, folded itself into the warmth it once begged for. The living and the dead are no longer two sides of the same coin. They are the same metal, forged together, melted and remade. When you finally rise, the bell rings once more. One perfect note, clear and soft, echoing across the hills. You smile without meaning to. It doesn't sound like morning anymore. It sounds like home. Years pass, though time in this place no longer feels like something that moves forward. The valley breathes in slow circles now, its seasons blending and looping like the pulse of a sleeping heart. The trees grow taller, the river deepens, the grass grows thick and rich where once only frost ruled. But no one comes down the road anymore. The paths are swallowed by moss, the signs eaten by rust. Travelers who pass in the distance speak of this place as though it were only legend, a valley where winter never quite ends, where the earth glows faintly at night. They hurry on, clutching their cloaks tighter, unwilling to test the stories. You remain, not because you have nowhere else to go, but because leaving feels wrong, like tearing yourself away from something that still breathes your name. You've grown older, though the mirror says otherwise. Your hands look the same, your hair untouched by grey. The reflection in water feels delayed, half a heartbeat behind your movements. When you walk through the empty streets, your steps make no sound. You think of it sometimes, how death was supposed to come suddenly, like a door closing, but here it feels more like water seeping through wood. Slow, inevitable, almost kind. The church still stands, though its roof has sagged and its bell is cracked. The brazier inside burns endlessly, its coals never dimming. The warmth it gives off is steady, neither comfort nor warning. You've grown used to it, the way people grow used to their own heartbeat. Every so often you think you hear footsteps, bare, unhurried, moving behind you in the pews. You turn, and there is nothing, but the air ripples faintly where someone might have been. You whisper names without realizing it. Ilsa, the priest, the children, the shepherd, the widow. Sometimes the hum deepens for just a moment, as though answering. The village around you has changed in ways the living could not have managed. The walls that once marked property lines have crumbled, yet no one repairs them. The fences are gone, and wildflowers climb over door frames. The river has shifted course slightly, curling closer to the churchyard, its water darker but strangely clear. Beneath its surface, stones gleam faintly, etched with patterns like the frost spirals that once covered the graves. The nights are not dark anymore. Even without moon or stars, the valley glows softly, the kind of dim warmth that feels like it comes from memory rather than light. Sometimes you walk beyond the edge of the fields up into the hills. From there you can see the entire valley below, wrapped in mist and breath. It looks smaller than you remember, as though distance itself has folded inward. The graveyard is the brightest thing in view, its stones arranged in neat concentric circles you're sure weren't there before. You stand there for hours, listening to the faint hum rising through the soil, the rhythm so steady you could almost mistake it for your own pulse. The wind no longer howls here. It murmurs, carrying the faintest traces of voices long gone. One night a storm rolls in from the north. You haven't seen lightning in years, and its sudden brilliance blinds you. The air crackles with power, the smell of ozone sharp and metallic. Rain begins to fall, not in drops, but in sheets, heavy and hot. The soil steams as it meets the ground, filling the air with the scent of iron and ash. The church bell rings once, twice, then falls silent. You step outside, feeling the heat of the rain soak through your clothes, running down your skin like tears. The whole valley glows brighter than ever before. The mist rises higher, curling into towers of light that twist and bend in the wind. You walk toward the churchyard, drawn by instinct. The ground trembles beneath your feet, not in fear but in awakening. The graves shimmer, their outlines blurring as though the boundary between stone and soil no longer matters. The warmth becomes unbearable, yet you keep moving forward, breathless and calm. When you reach the center of the yard where the oldest graves rest, the earth splits open, not violently but gracefully, like a curtain being drawn aside. From the crack rises light, deep and gold and endless. You see faces in it, not haunting but familiar, eyes closed, smiling faintly. Ilsa stands among them, her hand reaching toward you. You hesitate for only a heartbeat before taking it. Her skin is warm, pulsing faintly with life. She smiles, and for a moment the storm fades. The light dims, and all you can hear is the steady rhythm of her breath mixing with yours. "It's time," she says softly. You nod, not because you understand, but because you no longer need to. The warmth envelops you completely. The world dissolves into a soft haze of sound and color, bells, whispers, the distant murmur of the river. You feel the ground rise around you like water, lifting you, carrying you deeper. When you open your eyes, the valley is quiet again. The storm has passed. The air is cool and clean, smelling of wet earth. The church still stands, though its door hangs crooked. The brazier is gone. In its place is a hollow in the floor, glowing faintly from within. The mist drifts lazily over the graves, golden in the dawn light. The warmth remains, but softer now, less a presence, more a memory. You walk through the village one last time, and it feels full again. Shadows move behind windows. Laughter echoes faintly from courtyards. The air hums with life, or something close to it. You stop at your old cottage, its roof half collapsed, its door open. Inside, the hearth is cold. On the table sits your candle, burned down to nothing but a stub of wax and a wisp of smoke. You touch it, and it's still warm. You smile. You know now what the villagers had built. Not just a place to live, but a bridge. A way to keep the warmth of one world bleeding gently into the next. A way to refuse extinction by embracing it. The valley no longer belongs to maps or seasons. It exists somewhere quieter, suspended between breath and stillness, where every night is both ending and beginning. And as you stand there, the mist curling around your feet, you understand that this is not a haunting, it's a harvest. The final one. The warmth that kept you alive was never mercy, it was invitation. When the light fades, it takes your shadow with it. The village hums once, deeply, and the earth settles again. The graveyard breathes. The air cools. The world above moves on, forgetting. But deep beneath the soil, in the slow heat of that ancient valley, something still glows softly, patient and eternal. The warmth of a village that once slept beside the dead and became them. The warmth fades, but it doesn't vanish. It lingers the way breath does after a long sigh, invisible but heavy enough to be felt. The village sleeps again, folded into the soil like a story that has told itself too many times. The mist thins. The fields return to silence. Even the birds forget the path here. Only the faint hum remains, that pulse beneath the ground that sounds almost like your heartbeat when you lie still and listen long enough. You picture the church, its bell cracked and quiet, its stones still warm from centuries of hands pressed in prayer. The graves no longer look like borders, They look like doors left slightly open. The people who walked here, cold, hungry, half alive, found something that was not salvation but understanding. They learned that warmth was never something to be taken from the dead. It was something to be shared endlessly, without beginning or end. If you close your eyes now, you can almost smell it. The faint sweetness of myrrh, the earthy weight of damp linen, the last trace of candle smoke fading into cold air. You can feel the way time softens around memory until all of it becomes the same quiet breath. Somewhere beneath your feet, the ground exhales, slow and patient. You realize that not every ending is loss. Some are simply transformations too gentle to notice while they happen. So you let it go. You let the story settle. The light grows dim, the air cools, and the hum softens to a whisper, a heartbeat beneath the world's dreaming skin. You lie back, eyes heavy, listening to that ancient rhythm until it becomes your own. And then, like a candle going out, silence.